Well, they say go woke, go broke. If that's the case, our guest is a billionaire. No one is more anti-woke than Dan Dakich of Outkick.com. Have you ever had the nerve to at him, to at Dan Dakich? Don't do it if you haven't, but I wonder what would happen if you actually did. I can't imagine a media outlet more happy with the result of the election, maybe, than Outkick. Does the world feel different there? Because you were kind of one of the lone wolves for a while, and now it's mainstream opinion. But now everything changed in November, and I gotta believe it's what you guys are gonna be able to do now is just limitless.
Free at last, good God Almighty. One of the things that I feel that Outkick does is frankly just kind of have common sense and pay attention. I know we're probably conservative leaning, but like on my show, I'll take both sides if I think it's a legitimate side. I thought, being a ESPN guy and a sports radio guy, that the disdain, the hate, the online hate, all that stuff was bad in sports. It's nothing like politics, man. I mean, it's like, holy hell. You take a side against Biden and all of a sudden, man, everybody's coming at you. And it's kind of fun for me. So I'm kind of digging it. But now we're more mainstream, I guess.
Well, they say go woke, go broke. If that's the case, our guest is a billionaire. No one is more anti-woke than Dan Dakich of Outkick.com, his hit show, Don't At Me, with Dan Dakich.
I listen, don't at me all the time.
The one and only Cato Kalin right over here. I'm Tom Zenner. Welcome, everybody, to 1 Degree of Scandalous. Have you ever had the nerve to at him, to at Dan Dakich? Don't do it if you haven't, but I wonder what would happen if you actually did.
I'll tell you why I haven't, because I think exactly like Dan does. Dan and I, we may be brothers. I don't know. I got the gene with the hair, and Dan got the brains. And but it's I honestly, I love Dan. Everything he says, and it's and it pays off. And I'll tell you why it pays off, because he hooked up with Outkick, and I've been following Clay Travis, Buck Sexton forever, and then I was like, Dan's with them now. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and I can't imagine a media outlet more happy with the result of the election, maybe, than Outkick. I mean, really, Dan, welcome to the show, buddy. It's great to see you for the second time here on 1 Degree of Scandalous. Does the world feel different there? Because you were kind of one of the lone wolves for a while, and now it's mainstream opinion. Really, what you guys have been talking about in your philosophies has kind of been the silent majority, but now everything changed, in November, and I gotta believe it's what you guys are gonna be able to do now is just limitless.
Yeah, it's thanks for having me, by the way. Free at last, right? Free at last, good God Almighty. We're free at last. One of the things that I don't know how you guys feel, and I'm curious, I'm going to ask you, but one of the things that I feel that Outkick does is frankly just kind of have common sense and pay attention. I know we're probably conservative leaning, but like on my show, I'll take both sides if I think it's a legitimate side. But I think Outkick, common sense, as a lot of people said, it went out the window, and now I think it's kind of back. I'll be honest. I thought, being a ESPN guy and a sports radio guy, that the disdain, the hate, the online hate, all that stuff was bad in sports. It's nothing like politics, man. I mean, it's like, holy hell. You take a side against Biden, and all of a sudden, man, everybody's coming at you. And Outkick, as you guys said, Outkick was kind of a lone wolf in that. So guess what? All the left-leaning writers, left-leaning editors, left-leaning pundits all came at. Mostly Clay, a lot of me. And it's kind of fun for me. My wife always says, you like chaos, you strive in chaos. So I'm kind of digging it. But now we're more mainstream, I guess.
You know what? What is your opinion, Dan, on because you've got Doc Rivers, he coaches for the Bucks. You have Steve Kerr for Golden State. And they were bringing their politics so much into the game, and it just turned me off to the NBA completely. What's your stand on that? I mean, everybody's got an opinion, but you think a head coach should focus sports, which is why people watch it, to get away, I think, from politics and what's going on. It's entertainment. But they make, and also Popovich, those three, they just ruined, I think, NBA. What is your opinion? Because you coached.
Yeah. Cato, I couldn't imagine taking up. I remember when I worked for Coach Knight, that politicians were always wanting him to endorse somebody, and he's like, look, Go get it on your own. You don't need me. But Popovich is from my hometown, and I was really surprised. My hometown is Gary, Indiana, and it's a Democratic place, but I've always told people, like Gary, Indiana, which at one point was a murder capital of the world, now it is not. We're much better than that. But the people there are kind of pragmatic. They're not easily led. Like, you kind of pay attention. And when I saw what Popovich was doing, it didn't surprise me, Kerr. I know you guys are in California, but I don't necessarily think of each of you as a California guy. Both of you Midwestern, guys. And then Doc Rivers, I almost felt like this. Tell me what you think. I felt like when it came out about Beyonce and Oprah and all these folks getting paid, I was waiting to hear what Doc Rivers got paid. I was waiting to hear what Kerr, although Popovich and Kerr have been pretty adamant. And then LeBron does his thing. And I was glad to see that crap didn't fly with the American people. I was glad to see that crap with, hey, we're going to bring Beyonce out there or Big Mike, a.k.a. Michelle Obama, or Barack Obama out there. People paid attention to issues. People paid attention to policy. People paid attention to their own freaking lives as opposed to lives of some, quote, celebrities. I thought that was cool, man. I thought that was a big step forward in our country.
Yeah. And I also think it just shows you also that ownership was all for it. They were for that, for Doc Rivers to do. They're for him doing a commercial with Doug Emhoff, and it just showed you where they leaned.
Well, that just shows DEI and the power of that, because that trickles from BlackRock on the way down into every corporation, especially something like the NBA. But the big question now, like you look at Will Ferrell, he took such a harsh stance, like almost if you don't vote for Kamala, there's some coming after you. It's your fault. I mean, do you think there's going to be fallout for these celebrities, Dan? Do you think that there's going to be a reckoning for some of them? I do personally. I think like myself. I just look myself. I don't think of them as the same way. Do I really want to support them or do this when I don't really have to? Besides, most of the stuff we like them for happened 10, 15 years ago when they didn't have handcuffs on them. Now with the limitations.
Tom, I think you're absolutely right, because I look at it differently no matter what, because I saw Will Ferrell doing that, and I said, I really felt that way. Like, I'm not going to watch his stuff. Yeah. And the same with Jack Black. But Dan, you disagree.
I don't disagree. I think that, and you guys know better than I, but I feel like mainstream media in Hollywood would still support them. I take things literally. And I just started laughing. I'm like, I remember thinking, man, all right, you're coming at me, Will Ferrell. I think it'd take me about 2 minutes to kick the living shit out of you. So that's how I think, right? Like, that's not
everything has to be a physical altercation.
I know. But I said that's the way I think. I'm not saying I think it right. That's my first thought. Like, oh, really, Jack Black? You're like 2 feet tall. What are you going to do? Take a dump on your head? Is that what I'm going to do here? What are we doing? So that's how I look at it. And then I go the other way and go, all right, what's the fallout? I don't think, and I've seen this post-election, I think the mainstream media is sticking with their nonsense. I think they're still trying to hang on to that glimmer of hope that African Americans, Latinos, white males, whoever voted for Trump, you're bad people. You just don't understand. It's like there's something that the Steve Kerrs of the world, the Doc Rivers of the world, the Will Ferrells of the world, the Jack Black of the world understand that we all don't. And I think that's horseshit, excuse my language. I think that's absolute crap. But I don't necessarily think, I was having this conversation with my nephew, who's an agent at CAA, and I'm like, all right, in Hollywood, what's really changed, post-election? And he said, nothing really. He goes, they all wanted, California's California, and everybody wanted, and now everybody just moves it along. It was almost like a big, what do you call it? It was almost like a big game, a big charade. And then once, it got exposed and Harris was out, everybody's like, oh, okay, we'll go back to our jobs. That's kind of how I look at it, right or wrong.
I like the way you said it's exposed as a game, because, we found out, of course, that Biden, and he said absolutely no pardon for Hunter. He started out his whole presidency on a lie with the vaccine, and he ends it with a lie by pardoning his son. It's just the whole administration was a lie, and like Dan said, it's like a game to them, and it's not a game to me, and I'm sure it's not to you guys.
No,
because I'm in it for America to be great, and I think we're going to. I told Tom that I think this is the golden age starting in 2020. Actually, I think it started now, and it's just going to get better and better and better.
One of the things I would say though is I hope we all hold Trump to his promises. Like, I hope we hold Trump to not just, hey, man, I'm getting rid of everybody that's committing crimes here, that's illegal immigrants. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Well, okay, now go ahead and do it. Like, I do believe this. I do believe there's more hope in people. And I'm not just talking about, conservative people. I feel like across the board, people feel more hope. But I do hope that people say, wait a second here. Okay, here's what you promised. You getting this done? Well, if not, why not? I think he's off to a great start. But I hope they do that with every politician. I hope you do that with, Biden was the biggest liar. And what hit me about Biden, correct me if you agree with this or not, it's so easy for him to lie. And this is like he was booted off of 2 presidential tickets going way back to the 80s because you're a liar. Like all of a sudden people are like, oh my God, I'm shocked he's lying. No, my ass, that's who he is. So
here's the difference, Dan. He was never held accountable, right? Because the media, media and social media will never hold him accountable. So anything he says is going to be taken and then perpetuated and then sold, right? And now I think the big thing that's happened too is obviously with Musk owning X and everybody now forming consensus pretty much that the mainstream media is a joke, right? That if you really put your time into watching a cable news channel at night, you know what you're going to get, and that's it. So I think you're exactly right. Everything he said was because of a lie. But let me call you back on one thing you did say. Is there any part of you that doesn't think Trump will do exactly what he's going to plan on doing and what he said he was going to do? Because the first time he relied on his family and a lot. He wasn't a politician. He didn't know what to do. He could be railroaded and bamboozled and take opinions of people he really didn't trust and then make some bad decisions. I don't think he's going to do that this time.
No, absolutely not.
I mean, he's going scorched earth from day one.
Promises made, promises kept, and I think he did his first term.
I don't either, but I say, and again, I say this about every politician, like, okay, this is what you said you're going to do, now do it. Is there any part of me that doesn't think he's going to do it? No, I think I'm very excited. I'm very excited about Tom Homan. I'm very excited about, that Doja thing because fellas, this is the first time in my life that I didn't want to pay taxes. Like, I've always understood you got to pay tax. You want schools, you want roads, okay, you got to pay tax. But all of a sudden, I'm looking, wait a second, where's my money going? It's going to Ukraine. They switch it like, well, we're actually building the weapons in the United States. And we're saying, okay, hold on. It's going to illegal immigrants to stay in hotels. Where the hell is my money going? I swear to you, it's the first time. And people can kiss my ass. I'm not the richest dude. I'm not in the 1%, but I do all right. And they can kiss my ass about not paying their fair share. All I know is every time you can't swing a dead cat. My dog's even pissed. You can't swing a dead cat without it frickin' taxing me on something and taxing you guys on something. Now, I'll say this. I don't think Donald Trump will let us down. I do think that Donald Trump is setting the Republican Party up along with J.D. Vance to have a nice run here. 12 of 16 has been Democratic. But all I'm saying is, hey, look, all right, we get mad, Joe Biden, whoever, let's hold him accountable. Let's demand he does what he says, because what he says is great. And last thing, how does anybody get so damn mad about the sign, Make America Great Again? Ronald Reagan was doing that. Freaking Clinton was doing that. All of a sudden now it's a racial thing. You can't wear a hat on Curb Your Enthusiasm. You can't wear your hat on a flight. My ass.
So, Dan, I think everything I do, I kind of revolve around sports, but I think what Trump does the same way is like he's the head coach, and I think he surrounds himself with better people, with Musk, with Ramaswamy, with Vance, RFK, Pete Hegseth. He's building the championship team. It's the Super Bowl. They're going to win it. And I think he learned that from his first term, that he is now going to pick the best people, no backstabbers. And it's going to be, like I said, I think he's going to bring the golden age. And I think he thinks sport way. He does. He thinks like, yeah, I'm going to pick the best.
Yeah. And, if you ever get a chance, get Ramaswamy on here. He is so impressive, man. You get done with Ramaswamy and you feel like, well, my life isn't any good because that guy's so good. That guy's so smart. That guy's so accomplished. He is brilliant, and I was glad to see that he's a part of it. And that's the thing. You mentioned it earlier, Cato. He had so many, Jared Kushner, he had his daughter in there, had all these people. It seems like now he's doing things that he learned over the 4 years of maybe being out. in any job you have, like I always said this, if I went back and was a basketball coach right now, and I haven't coached basketball in 14, 15 years, but if I went back right now, I would be so much better than I was even after spending 12 years every day with Bob Knight because of what I learned from being out, how to do it, how not to do it, see right, see wrong. And I think to your point, your point is absolutely right. He is putting together a team. You know, a lot of people use the word team, but a lot of people don't know what team means and they don't know the hierarchy of team. It feels to me like he understands team and he's basing it on the American people. Again, that Doja thing where we're going to look at government spending. How good is that? You got the toughest guy, at least it seems like, you know, in the world, Tom Homan, you know, going to go after, you know, illegal immigrant criminals. He's going to put in the finest economists as opposed to surrounding himself with yes men. And I think that's brilliant. Again, when you have done something, and regardless of whether you were successful or you failed, you should learn. And then when you sit out, you study, you go back in, you should be much better. And that's my hope, is that he is much better, even though I thought he was great the first time. My hope is that his team that he has surrounded himself with elevates this thing to a level that the American people not only prosper, but are protected and safe, staying out of wars, things like that.
Yeah, and plus he's got it stacked right now with the House and the Senate where he can actually get some things done. Hey, Dan, this is a question that only you could answer, really, because when you look at Bobby Knight, he was a tyrannical, very successful leader, his way or the highway. You coached under him for many, many years. You played underneath him. I'm not sure he learned from anything. He was so set in his ways. Trump has his unique tactics. He's a forceful individual, but he's got charisma, right? And he's a salesman, right, at heart. So, and a marketer. So there's that difference. But do you see any similarities? And just take personality out of it, but just working for someone that was so successful, so universally known for what they did, with a very, very distinct style and approach and records and scoreboard that you can point to and track their success. You played for one, you follow the other. Do you see any correlations there?
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, one of the things you mentioned, charisma, Coach Knight could turn it on like no other. One of the things that's interesting about both, and I know this, everybody that worked with or around Coach Knight, it ended badly. Like, it ended badly for me. Every assistant I was with, it ended badly. And it feels the same way with Trump. That's the negative. The positive is this, and, you know, both never drank, which if they drank, Trump's even said, and I know Knight used to tell me, man, if I drank, it'd be nuts. They never drank. They were workaholics. They were perfectionists. Knight was an absolute perfectionist. The little things mattered. In fact, Frank DeFord wrote an article about him. Instead of going after the elephants, he always went after the rabbits, meaning he always went after the little things that drove him nuts, and it feels like that's the same thing. They took things very personal. I look at Trump, and you could tell he's got a lot of things that he's got a chip on his shoulder that he's going to get back at. That was Knight's thing. Both absolutely brilliant, and not only brilliant in terms of a plan, but brilliant at making adjustments. It seems like to me, I know Knight was brilliant off the cuff, brilliant at solving a problem with common sense. The first thing that I saw when I saw Donald Trump that reminded me of Knight was what I just said, the ability to make a complex issue simple based on common sense. While everybody else may be politically correcting it and moving it into different boxes, the first time I saw Trump take something and go, I don't know what he said. It was basically, yeah, what the hell, you do it this way and it works. That was like a Bob Knight, and actually my father, who Knight reminded me of my father. I used to have flashbacks. But it hit me, you know, that's a real skill. You know, how many times do you watch a game and some announcer's talking and talking and talking but not saying anything, right? Or you're listening to a speech, or you're listening to me right now, I'm talking and talking, I'm saying. The ability to be concise with a difficult problem with common sense is the one thing that puts me, and being tough, I mean, and unafraid to, catch hell for decisions. That's a big deal. But that ability off the cuff, that's like a thread through both of them as I watch them.
Yeah, the theme sort of our show is like go woke, go broke sort of. And I was going to ask Dan, speaking of Bobby Knight, you got Bobby Knight, you got yourself, and I follow Dan religiously on X. I follow him and everything he says. Now, there are these two Indiana basketball players that were doing a dance, and it was Dan. It was saying, well, first of all, Bobby Knight and yourself would never let players get away with that. Am I correct? And when did that happen? Do you think Mike Woodson said, "Go ahead, guys, go and do this
Shake it.
kind of effeminate dance, whatever it was. It wasn't the Trump dance. It'd be good. It wasn't the Trump.
It wasn't a Trump dance.
It was just guys
like during a game or like during a timeout.
It looked like it looked like it was a practice.
Oh,
it probably, but they're in uniform and they did this, and then Dan just tore them to shreds. But I think you had a point, and I think. I don't know when it happened with I would never think 10 years ago we would be talking about men and women's sport. I thought that'd be a comedy sketch. You got men and women's sports. I can't believe that's even an issue. And then Dan, these guys are doing some sort of dance. Bobby Knight would never let this happen. Am I correct? And you, and what is your opinion of, is it okay to have these guys do this stuff?
Here's the deal.
By the way, they're ranked number 14. Maybe they can do it. They're 14th in the country.
When I was at Bowling Green 10 years as a coach, my players wouldn't have even thought about doing it. Now, Indiana, we'd have never even thought about doing it. Here's what it was. So guys sign up to play at Indiana or Duke or wherever, and they always talk about, the history and, Bobby Knight and the toughness. And I'm like, all right, well, live up to it. So these guys are doing this effeminate cheerleader dance in their uniforms at their media day that they've scripted. And I just said, this is what Indiana's become. Now, Indiana football has been great. You want to dance after you win a championship, or you want to dance after a great win. That's great. But a scripted little girl, that's actually offensive to little teenage girls, if you want to know the truth. I mean, they looked like I'm not even going to say, but it was the most effeminate thing. And one of the dudes is from Indiana, and his dad is a high school coach here, and this guy always does this. Indiana hasn't won jack shit in the time these guys have been there. Haven't won a Big Ten, haven't advanced in the NCAA tournament, but yet here these guys are dancing while telling us, yeah, we love and respect the history of Indiana. It just pissed me off. If you want to know the truth, it just did. I got all these little fat co-eds or ex-co-eds, these alumni, these women. Well, they're just kids. I go, listen. And I sent Mike Woodson, Isaiah Thomas, and Steve Alford, and a bunch of ex-players this dance. And I said, look, I was there 17 years. And if this is what Indiana, and Woodson's the head coach, I said, if this is what Indiana has become, then you guys are missing out. And the other day, after they got their ass beat, I sent another text saying, look, Indiana used to be about toughness. Mike, I'm going to give you a hint. The only coaches that have been successful at Indiana post Bob Knight was one half of Tom Crean and Calvin Sampson, who got fired, but both of them emphasized toughness. It drives me nuts. Like, I know I don't go to games because I never want to be the old guy hanging around, but don't tell me we're coming to Indiana because of what Indiana is. It's top up, and then you're dancing like a grade school freaking cheerleader. That pissed me off.
Wait till the end of our show. Tom and I have a dance.
Yeah, Cato brings pom-poms to every episode. It's lovely. It's lovely. And juice boxes. It's great. It's called discipline. It's just discipline. Dan, you go off on rants like that, I might think you're old school or something. No, but seriously, it's just discipline, which athletes want and which you have to be successful. Look at the University of Alabama. There's a good chance they might not even win or make it to the playoffs this year. Discipline, focus, have some respect for the history of your school. You'd think you'd go there and not even want to try to do that. And again, it comes down to common sense. And you brought this point up right at the beginning, and that's what Outkick's about. And really, that's what I am too. I preach and talk about common sense all the time. And that's why I was so excited with the outcome of the election, because I finally felt like common sense and sanity finally prevailed. Now, the difference is this progressive side of the Democratic Party doesn't understand even what the word common sense means. Now, I think rational people like us can look at both sides of a story. Hey, we're not right all the time. Right. There's moderation for everything. Do you think they're capable of having any common sense seep into those craniums of theirs in the next 4 years? Or is they just going to constantly be the victims? Everybody's wrong. America's falling apart. America's horrible. Do you sense any of them coming around, including the media?
I sense that they're going to have to. I'll tell you why. They got their ass kicked, but they're not there yet because they're still. When you look at people, they're still name calling. Like, I finally, I don't know how you guys are, but I finally got tired of being called a Nazi or being called garbage. I said, wait a second. I raised two great kids. I put them through college. I've been working some type of job since I was 12 years old. I've been a great father, stepfather to my stepkids. I have a great relationship with my ex-wife, blah, 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 blah. And I go, that's garbage just because I have a different political ideology than you or because I look at things differently than you. I'm garbage. I'm a Nazi. And that, I think, has exhausted, but I don't think it's changed, guys. I was watching some of these clips on these different shows, and they're still doing that crap. I mean, they're still calling names instead of setting policy. I think, Tom, to your question, I think right now, the name calling, all that rhetoric, but as we move forward, I believe you're going to see two things. I believe you're going to see intense criticism of everything Donald Trump does, unless, of course, the American people do what they did in the election and just keep fighting back against it on social media and other areas. And then I think you're going to see I got to believe there's some intelligent people there. They've got to stop the name calling. They've got to stop the lying. They got to stop projecting what they're doing onto the Republicans and start being serious about policy, start being serious about the American people. When you look at what has transpired here, everything that was said negative against the Republicans was simply a projection. I'll give you one. Like, J.D. Vance is weird. What? J.D. Vance, his history is right there for everyone to see. His common sense is out there. Well, what was Tim Walz? Tim Walz was the effeminate male with the jazz hands. His wife was crazy. His daughter's nuts. They're projecting everything onto. We're going to go after our political enemies, is what they said about the Republicans. Wait a second. You just brought up some trumped up charges against Trump. Every single thing was a projection. And I think, guys, you're going to see eventually, not yet, but that's going to stop because the election told you, they can keep bitching about it for right now, but the election told you that didn't work. You better come up with some policy. You better come up with something that is pro-American or else, and I don't think anybody would disagree with this, the star between the four people, Walz and Trump, and Harris and Vance was Vance. Like, I had a lot of people say, damn, I'd vote for Vance tomorrow. That's a pretty good setup for the American people, and the Democrats will figure that out at some point.
I think Dan's, when he said Waltz did spirit fingers, I think Dan has a different finger for Tim Waltz. It's a completely different spirit.
So do you.
But I do. But I want to get back to the point when you're saying about legacy media. I'll tell you why I think it's done. We already know that Twitter, or X, is the number one source of news now. It's beating everybody. And I think the Morning Joe and Micah going to Mar-a-Lago, sort of kissing the ring, shows that they're done. Scott Jennings now on CNN is getting the best ratings because Scott Jennings, he tells it like it is. I don't know if you've seen Scott Jennings on CNN. He just tears them to shreds. So you can see that they know they're only going to survive if they've got another conservative view. They're done otherwise. They can't exist. They're going to just beat up Trump only so much, but Trump's going to, like I said, it'll be the golden age, and you can't beat him up. Yeah. He's already like the Death Star. You beat him up for the last 4 years. He got stronger and stronger. And Tom, tell me if you agree with this. 81 million votes. I've always said there's absolutely no way. But I think in hindsight, these last 4 years were horrible, but it's going to make these next 4. We had to see how bad it really was. We had to see how bad we had it, how bad. And now I'm just happy.
Yeah, we had to go through hell, basically.
I feel like we have Christmas. I honestly, I suffered for 4 years. I was like going insane. And now I don't even care about gifts. I got a gift when he won.
Here's what I think the American people found out, Cato. They found out what you found out when you went through that whole OJ thing, and what I found out in numerous articles on me painting me as a bad guy. The legacy media is full of shit. I mean, you found that out. I guarantee you read stuff. I think you told me one time that you saw something like on The Tonight Show or one of those shows, and you're like, what? Like they painted you as this kind of hippie drug doing. I don't know what it was.
Constantly had you can't really defend yourself.
I was telling a friend of mine, we were watching the IU Purdue game, and I said, hey, I'm going on Cato Kalin's show. And I said, he's like, really? How do you know him? I go, I really don't know. We just on Twitter, whatever. And I said, let me ask you a question. What kind of guy do you think Cato Kalin is? And he said, well, I mean, he's obviously, this exact quote, he's obviously kind of a, California drinking drug guy, right? And I go, no, he's a Wisconsin Christian guy. But you were painted, and I think the American people, like, their lives were so affected, like yours was or like mine's been, when these articles come out, and they're like, well, that's bullshit, that's crap. Do you see the point I'm making? Like, you and I had it from a personal experience. The United States, the people of the United States saw it from a broader perspective, if that the lies, the bullshit, if that makes sense.
It does, because repetition is what legacy media used on Trump himself. Repetition of negative, and of course you start believing this repetition that's not true. And if I defend myself, or if you defend yourself, you it's a snowball effect that goes against you. You just gotta let time go by, and then people go, you know what? He's a good dude. You and me. Yeah. So,
hey, how about the fact that it was Donald Trump Jr.'s idea that they're going to move podcasters into the briefing rooms, for the press conferences. They're going to slide some of those other guys back, right? That's going to create chaos. But it's awesome.
I volunteered. Clay put out that he's I guess Trump and his people, they monitor Outkick. Like, he said, he's interviewed Trump with Clay and Buck, and he's like, yeah, his people monitor Outkick. I said, well, I volunteer to be the Outkick White House correspondent. I always wanted to be the press secretary. I think it would have been fun telling Helen Thomas to kiss my ass when she asked a question 100 years ago. But if Outkick gets in there, that'd be a huge win. And you know what? The world is changing. People don't trust. When's the last time you said, hey, I'm going to watch NBC News or ABC News or CB? You never watch that. We get our stuff. So I think that's a great idea.
I have not watched local news in forever. And I also think, don't at me. You are, honestly, I'm not just saying this to kiss your ass. You're the perfect choice to be in there as one of the podcast people. No, you are. I mean, you know your stuff, and you're pretty much you are the Tom Homan of podcast.
No.
Hey, Dan, you just got to keep pushing it.
I'm soft.
They'll let you in there. You got to keep pushing it. You talk about a bull in a china shop. Dan Dakich inside the White House briefing room.
Outkick will get in there for sure.
No, you'll have to. I mean, you have 4 years. They're going to rotate people in and out of that. You just got to stay on top of it. You'll get your shot. No question about it. You know who got the early Christmas present is President Trump, because when Biden pardoned Hunter, he's admitting that they weaponized the Justice Department, or he's trying to say that. He's using that as an excuse. You don't think Trump's going to run with that for the next 4 years?
Tom, do you realize that he's pardoning Hunter for 10 years? Because that's basically pardoning himself. That's when he started the whole Ukraine thing. He's pardoning for 10 years of anything he's ever done.
Yeah, it's a blanket pardon, right?
Yeah,
everything.
But according to that, it only pardons Hunter, not the other people involved.
Does he get his crack pipes back? I mean, will they be returned?
I think they're in. Is eBay still around? Here we go. But he's good. These pardons are going to be good for Hunter. Yeah. But if the confirmation for Kash Patel happens for FBI director, I'm telling you, the swamp will be drained. The plug will be pulled, and the people will seep down the drain pipe, and that's no kidding. Mm-hmm. So he's got to be confirmed.
Yeah, he does, and he's like Homan, right? He's a badass. He's not going to mess around. The thing that I've said so far is Trump didn't drain the swamp yet, but he exposed the swamp. I think now we know kind of sort of who the swamp is. Whether you want to, I guess maybe we always did, but there was never any backlash. And, to your point about a Christmas present, it goes back. I saw this today. You guys may know better than me, but this goes back almost to the day that Hunter Biden started with that Burisma, and they started siphoning funds, from Ukraine and other places into their accounts. So that 10 years covers that entire deal. Even my dog's pissed off about it. He's mad. He's like, what are you doing? But you know what the thing is, and tell me if you agree with this. They lie so easy. Like, Joe Biden lies. It's like Seinfeld, right? It's not a lie if you believe it. It's like he lies so damn easily, and it it's amazing to me, and it infuriates me.
Yeah, because they have just a lack of respect for just common people and American people, and everything is self-serving, and we're just pawns in all of it.
And then the press secretary lies for him again, which pisses me off.
Right, that's basically her job. Right,
her job is just to lie for. He said, and X there just keep posting it of them saying, I will not pardon my son. I will not pardon my son.
Yeah,
it's all an X.
multiple times.
Would you pardon your son?
Me personally, yeah, I would.
Yeah, and I would not say I wouldn't do it.
Yeah,
that's what I wouldn't do. I wouldn't back myself into a corner.
Exactly. I knew they was going to do it, and Trump predicted that too.
Yeah.
So,
Trump actually said he would potentially pardon Hunter Biden. I mean, that would have been a gangster move if he had done that. That would have been brilliant if he had done that, right? Can you imagine them having to say something nice and come over to the house and thank him for it? Dan, go ahead.
Will he pardon the January 6th?
Absolutely.
100% first day, I think. Day one.
Yeah, he'll do that right away. Dan, common sense, is kind of the theme of this show a little bit. And it's the theme of your show as well. You saw both sides of this. You worked at ESPN for many, many years. And there's no place that is just more in your face woke than Disney, ESPN were. They had no apologies about it either. And if you had any dissecting view, they'd get rid of you, right? We've seen evidence of that. Were even frontline SportsCenter anchors and the stars of the network, could you sense a fear inside that building? Or were they all on board politically and fundamentally kind of like believing the same things? Or did you feel like, man, I don't know if this guy really feels that way. I'm not sure if this guy really is buying into this. But because sometimes you can get into a room or a building and the energy is just a certain way. You can feel fear. I felt it in 2006 when I was doing something with Miami Dolphins, and Nick Saban was the coach for the Dolphins back then. And that was he wasn't making as an NFL coach, and he had a different style, but I could just sense the tension. It was just so heavy in those offices, right? I'm just curious what it was like at ESPN, because basically you had enough at one point, but could you sense it? Could you feel it? And, were people fearful of their jobs there?
When I was at ESPN, and this is probably 2000, this is way 11, 12, I would go there every Wednesday through Friday. And when I was there had been a book that came out about these guys have all the fun, which basically showed ESPN to be an old boys club. A lot of, what's the right word? Guys hitting on women at the place. And that was the thing then. So it was really like you were afraid to say hello to anybody, not because of politics, but because of this book. And ESPN made all these policies about sexual harassment and stuff like that. So that was then. Then, as I moved through ESPN, they put in a no politics thing. And one day, Seth Greenberg, who's a basketball analyst, and I were watching a debate, and I tweeted something out, and he tweeted something out, and we both got a call, right? And it was like, hey, no politics. I'm like, what are you talking about? We're just said something. I wasn't really there, but my friends that are there know there's an absolute double standard. I get calls all the time from guys that work there about the double standard. Everybody knows that the African-American, Stephen A. Smith, those guys can say whatever they want. The white guys can't. And they know that. And, maybe that's, if somebody wants to paint me as racist for saying that, that's good. Go ahead, whatever you want to do. That's just the way it is. And they know that. I've had so many guys on Air Talent tell me that, both black and white. Yeah, I know what I can say, and I know what he can't say. That's absolute at ESPN. That's not even up for debate. That is known literally every single, Stephen A. Smith can say things that maybe only Pat McAfee can say, maybe. But no, there's absolutely a fear among white dudes to say the wrong thing, to get involved politically. I mean, there are a bunch of guys there that are really smart. I'll give you an example. Fran Fischel has been a basketball analyst, terrific basketball coach. He's been there. I think he just signed on for his 23rd, 24th year. And he is brilliant with politics, studied it in college, studied it after, master's degree, all the stuff. And whenever, we talk free, enough, once, twice a month. Yeah, he's like, man, I wish I could say the things that you said or interject my politics, but he knows he can't. And, that's just the way of the world. He knows Stephen A. Smith could, or Jalen Rose, when he was there, would say stupid stuff, lie about I think it was Jacob Blake being dead. I mean, the whole, George Floyd, you weren't allowed to say that he was on fentanyl. I mean, you had to make him into a hero or you had to shut up. Absolutely. Dan Orlovsky actually did this. Dan Orlovsky is one of their football analysts. And when the Olympic boxer that people thought was a male was running through the Olympics, you remember this story? So Orlovsky puts out on a tweet, "We must protect our daughters." Well, he deletes that 10 seconds later. Well, of course, the internet's forever. And he came out and said, well, it goes against the policies of ESPN. And I sent the head of ESPN, Jimmy Pitaro, an email. I said, do you guys ever look at yourself and see what you've become and become disgusted when a guy can't even tweet out, "Protect our daughters"? I said, I have a daughter, I have a stepdaughter, I have a sister, I have a wife, I have an ex-wife, I have a mother, I have a sister-in-law. You're telling me that I can't tweet out, "If I work for you, protect our daughters"? That's absurd. And but that's the way it is. Now, Pitaro has always sent me an email back, except for on that email. So, I don't think I'll be working for the worldwide leader anytime soon. But yeah, everybody at ESPN knows. 100% they know. And they talk about it privately, but never publicly.
So at ESPN, when this is going on and when COVID's going on, there's an internal memo, correct? And does that memo doesn't come from, you said Jimmy, does that come from someone up at Disney and that it goes down and everybody's got to sort of say the same thing?
Well, I bet a lot of it's unspoken, right? You work there, you know what you can and can't say. They don't have to have a list of rules. Yeah, because if you step out of line,
but is there,
you're going to be shamed, fined, suspended, or fired.
Is there still is there anything on print, though, a memo? Or is it just like Tom says?
When I was there, COVID hit. And the next year I worked there, and I was an independent contractor, meaning when I was first there, I'd go on Wednesday, stay there Thursday, Friday, fly home. Later on, because of the way my days worked, they wanted me on more games than they did in studio, and I had 51 dates, that kind of thing. So I never really went there. I got I don't know if I got a memo on COVID or not. I remember where I was. I was getting ready. I did the last ESPN game, college basketball game, me and Sean McDonough before COVID hit at the ACC tournament. And I remember, I was going to do the night game. Jay Billis was doing the afternoon game. And I remember them walking off the court. Then we got an email saying we're done. But I don't really remember, here's what we're going to say about COVID or here's what we're not going to say. I don't remember that. And by the time the next year hit, I was doing games. I couldn't believe this. They sent me out to South Dakota, which is where COVID first started. They sent me out for a tournament at Thanksgiving, and I got COVID. And I'm like, fellas, I didn't even go out. I literally spent New Year or Thanksgiving Day in my room. I'd ordered 6 beers the night before, put them in my room, got whatever Thanksgiving dinner was. I had morning games. At the game, sat in my room all night, and I got COVID on the way home. I'm like, fellas, you sent me to the place where it's the hottest in the country. But I don't remember any.
It wasn't the Sage Steel where you weren't forced to get any shot, nothing, because you were never in.
No, I wasn't there then. No, well, no, that's not true. That's not true. I did have to get. I did. In fact, I did, and I did. I got the shot, and I missed a few games, which cost me money because I did get COVID, and I did most of the games that next year. So next year, I think I did about 90% of them from my house. They put a little studio in for us.
It's interesting what's happening at ESPN because the Pat McAfee's, he's not an employee, right? And I think you're going to see this a lot more. He has his own production company and he's licensing his show to ESPN. Brilliant move. Inside the NBA is going to basically do the same thing. So Charles Barkley can say whatever the hell he wants on NBA coverage. And I think the stars at ESPN are going to see that. They are seeing that. They're going to be paid just as much, without having to be an employee. It's an amazing thing. And I give ESPN a little bit of credit for embracing that model and realizing, okay, this is what the public wants. This makes money, because so many decisions that are made that are woke are just so diabolically stupid. They're just insane, right? And, if you talk about some of the strangest things, Dan, because your show, does such a great job of pushing back against wokeism, do you have any great highlights from the last 4, 5, 6 years of the biggest absurd moments? Mine is the comfort peacock that wouldn't be allowed on the plane, and they'd be letting almost anything, I can't fly without my peacock. Remember, just some of this insane stuff that had been going on. It almost makes you just dumbfounded that we allowed it to happen and that we were witnesses of it and part of it. Not that we chose to.
I don't think we there's so many of those. One thing I loved was we had Charles Barkley, and he's like railing against his own company, right? He's like, oh, these guys are so stupid. These guys are morons. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, damn, it must be nice. Right? You got Charles F.U. money, and he is just absolutely going off. And I'm sitting there like, this is awesome, right? Because, he got comfortable. And the other one that was unbelievable was Kirk Herbstreit came on. And Kirk had put a tweet out, same thing like Orlovsky, asking should men play against women or women play against men, not men play against women. And he said, of course not. It's a stupid question. Well, he caught all kind of hell, so I had Kirk on, and Kirk's just like, yeah, I don't give a shit. That's so stupid. I just don't give a shit. I've held my tongue for so long, I just don't care anymore. It's so stupid. It's so idiotic. And, he's right. Speaking of that issue, I have an answer for that. Transgender women that are transitioning to men play against women. Men transitioning to women play against women. That's stupid. I'm all inclusive. I'm an open-minded guy. Both should play against men. There's no rule. There's no guideline that says if you're transitioning from a woman to a man or a man to a woman, you play against a woman. That's just how it's been. I say that's crap. Have everybody play against the men. It's still open. You got a chance, right? But there's no NCAA rule. Like my stepdaughter was playing softball at Harvard. So they play Yale. So Yale has a girl that's transitioning to a boy. She's playing on the women's softball team. Well, Leah Thomas, the swimmer, was transitioning from a boy to a girl, and he's playing against the women too. It's stupid. So I don't know. I just went on a rant there. I apologize.
Is Transatlantic Airways still around? And is it, Dan? I need to know because I'm booking a flight tomorrow. And what do I have to wear? Can I bring my penis or not?
You can, but a little tape, maybe pull it up. You know what I'm saying? Keep that thing.
I'd hate to see the cockpit at Trans-American.
I gotcha. I see what you did there.
Back then remember that transatlantic.
Of course.
It's like it's just
transatlantic
time. It just changes everything. It just changes.
Here's the bigger question: what happens when a transitioning male to female smashes a spike into somebody's face and she has to get plastic? It happens all the time. How are we not appalled by this? Because the percentage of people that you think are going to be offended by these non-common sense ideas are so minuscule. And like ESPN, what Orlovsky did, right? And Kirk, Herbstreit, right? And who are we afraid of offending? Like 3% of the people who are wrong?
I think it's lower than 3.
Yeah. 2?
Boy, that is so true. That is unbelievably true. Like, okay, it's like I used to tell my kids, hey, you're mad at me? Go over there and let me know when you're not mad at me anymore, then come on back. You know what I mean?
Hey, what'd you guys think of the fact that the story came out just a day or so ago that Spring Hill Studios, LeBron James production company, he's lost 25 million this past year, 25 or 30 million. Plus, he's taken this break from social media now. Did you notice that? He's checked out of social media. You cover that one, Dan, or you read into that at all?
Yeah, I wonder. LeBron was a big P. Diddy guy, right? I mean, everything I look at in Hollywood. Like, Ellen DeGeneres leaving to go. I'm like, well, okay, P. Diddy. LeBron, what? P. Diddy. I'll say this. When CAA, the agency, was recruiting me, I was in L.A., and I was doing a UCLA-Michigan game. the guys in CAA set up me, my wife, and our producer, Bart Fox, to go on a private tour with the president of Universal. I think it's Universal or Paramount Studios. I forget which one. Guy takes us and he shows us, he goes, yeah, this is a movie set, but that building is LeBron James's office on our set. And you know what he said about LeBron? And this fascinated me. He said, when LeBron James and his team brings us a project, it's incredibly well thought out, well organized, and well done. He said, when Magic Johnson brings us a project, it's crap. So, and then I saw today the same thing that you're seeing, which is LeBron's losing like whatever 100 million or whatever 30 million, whatever it was. And that fascinated me a little bit, just to go back to that conversation. But as soon as I saw LeBron James is leaving social media, I went, P. Diddy. Everything's P. Diddy right now when I see someone, leaving, going away. It's P. Diddy.
P. Diddy or Epstein, right?
I was going to say.
Cato, you're a highfalutin guy. How were those P. Diddy parties? You thought they were okay? A little greasy?
I was only the valet there. I parked the cars. That's it.
Cato's the guy with the hard drives now, with all the evidence.
Yeah. No, I never did. I actually saw P. Diddy one time at the Playboy Mansion, and he gave me, I don't know why, he gave me this really dirty look. And in hindsight, I'm going, I'm glad this guy didn't like me. Yeah. So, no P. Diddy party here.
Yeah.
Which is good news for me.
What's going to happen? I think there's a possibility we could learn a lot of names fairly quickly. I think you'll have people running for the hills. Well,
I think it's already happening.
Yeah.
I think it's all up to. I think it has to be the confirmation of Kash Patel. That's the truth, because he already said that pretty much that he will release Epstein and P. Diddy list.
And then you got Jamie Foxx, who's going to talk about his illness, quote unquote illness. And if you live out here, you hear all kinds of stories. I've heard all kinds of stories, including one that I believe that I'm not going to mention.
Are you talking about Jamie Foxx possibly with the P. Diddy thing?
Yeah, I'm talking about the potential poisoning or whatever it was.
I read that.
Yeah, it's, man, the world has just changed so much in the span of a couple months, hasn't it?
But let me ask you guys something. Do you think the media will pursue this? It feels like media, and I'm talking about P. Diddy, or I'm talking about any type scandal like that, where seemingly left-leaning or liberal people are involved. Do you think the legacy media will pursue P. Diddy and the list and all the other people involved in that?
Well, I can answer that first, and I think it doesn't even matter. Because if that list is released, it's going to go to the real news sources, which is the bigger podcasts and some alternate news sources that are out there. So they're not going to be able to do anything. And if they try to spin it the other way, I think the facts that will be revealed will just shut them down. So I could imagine them trying to protect each other or toning it down a little bit. And you look at a big media company like that are connected to a studio or a major corporation. There's people involved in those companies whose names are going to be coming out. So I don't think it matters, because if they release the names and the list, we're going to find out about it in black and white.
And money, they can't do anything with money. They can't pay anybody off because there's too many outlets that on the podcast, people that from a Rogan to whoever has the largest podcast, because they're gonna expose anybody.
And who's going to run to MSNBC or CNN to go for context on this, right? You're just not going to do it. You're going to go online, and you're going to go find the places that really know how to report a story.
And Musk might be buying MSNBC, so you never know.
How does he find enough time in the day? Aren't you just fascinated? I mean, SpaceX.
He's got a team. He's got a team.
But he's such an integral part of that team. I mean, he is the guy, and now he literally hasn't left Trump's side. And if he's 5 steps ahead of everybody. If he buys MSNBC, could you imagine?
Did you see MSNBC? What is the key demographic? 24 to 54, average 38,000 viewers. That's it. Over last week, 38,000. That's like my podcast. Like, that's MSNBC, for crying out loud. Like, people, you're right. People are done. They're just absolutely done with the lying. They're done with the calling of names. They're done with no substance. They're just done. And good. Hell yeah, listening to something like this, not me, but when you guys have real guests on, far more informative than, listening to Joy Reid call everybody Nazis or whatever the hell her dumb ass is doing.
Yeah, but no, and by the way, don't at me, the best show ever. And I watch it. But it is. It's fantastic. And Dan, you are fantastic. I totally see Outkick at the White House. I think it will happen.
Yeah.
I do. I really.
What people want and they crave and they're drawn to is honesty. And that's kind of this new, I think, kind of new genre, new day and age we're going to be in here. That they just want honesty, they want truth, and they want people to be able to talk the truth without fear of blowback or having their careers ended or something like that. I thought of your interview that you did on Dan, which was so good. It was probably a 4 or 5 year. I think you did it in Minneapolis at the Final Four, where you basically came out and said you do not like Bobby Knight. You don't like him as a person. You don't care for him. And you were very, very honest and critical of him. What was the blowback from that? Because you got a lot of, sycophants for Bobby Knight, I'm sure, throughout Indiana. But then you have a lot of other people that played for him and coached underneath him and saw what you saw. What was there a big reaction publicly? Did some people thank you for saying that? Because it's hard to take shots at godlike figures like that sometimes.
Nobody thanked me for saying that. Many people, because I was there so long, were surprised by that. Like I said that, and Tom, I said, I love playing for him. I love working for him. But once I went to ESPN, he backstabbed the living hell out of me. And it disappointed me and it pissed me off. I had a lot of people come at me. You only made your name because you played at Indiana for Bob Knight. And my comeback was, I could have gone to Duke. I could have gone to Michigan. You're telling me I might have been president of the United States if I went to Duke and Michigan instead of a freaking coach. That's never flowed with me. But I got a ton of blowback. A massive amount of blowback. Now that I think about it, I hadn't thought about it. It was 3 or 4, whatever years ago, and I got a ton, and I've never apologized for it. And because that's the truth. Now, when he passed away, I did a video that, I don't know, a couple million people watched where I said, look, you can get mad at him. I certainly didn't end well with him, but, Indiana basketball was our thing. And if you didn't like Coach Knight, that's great. But we did. When we played for him, we did. It was like the mafia, right? What is it, La Cosa Nostra, our thing? Well, that's what it was for us. But my thing, when Patrick asked me, I didn't know he was going to ask me that, but I'm not a great liar. I mean, back in the day, I bullshitted my wife to, get her to like me. That kind of thing, you got to be able to do that. I don't know. My parents were school teachers, and they're like, look, just tell the truth. Figure it out later. So I got a ton of blowback. Now I think about it. I forgot about that. I got a ton.
I'll tell you, Dan, with people that would beat you up on that sort of thing, I think you do everything on merit, sort of the meritocracy, because you're good at what you do. You're great at what you do, and your voice at ESPN. I'd watch you on NCAA games, and I always look forward to it before I even knew you. And I just, certain people that just got it, and you got it. And that's, once again, me not kissing.
Hey, man, this hour flew. Hey, let me ask you, because you live in Indiana, you went to Indiana University. It's unbelievable what a success.
Hall of Fame, by the way.
I know.
He's inducted in the Hall of Fame.
It's unbelievable what a successful football program can do, isn't it? It's how surreal is that for you to see Indiana be dominant in football?
My favorite sport has always been college football. Always. I love it. And I always said on my shows, man, I just wish we could be involved, because we sucked forever. Literally. I started watching in 73, and we had one good year. 87, that's it. And to see the other night, it's 17 degrees, it's snowing in Bloomington, and man, the joint is packed. They're going to go to the playoffs. It's freaking awesome. Basketball, hey, look, it's king in our state. Even Caitlin Clark coming in enhanced it, all that kind of stuff. But watching this football and what Coach Signetti and these players have done, I swear to you, those of us of my age and that I went to college with, and we're like, hey, man, we never figured we'd see this. No way did we ever think we'd see this. And it's fun.
Yeah, it's almost like a gift, right? It's just the alumni base is just rejuvenated. Yeah, the fundraising had to go through the roof, and you got a coach that you could just identify with. You suck, you suck, you suck. Got the Purdue coach fired this past Saturday.
And Wisconsin, first time in 30 years, they're not going to be a championship team. First, they have just taken Luke Fickell. He is awful. He is just gone
For
bombed.
anybody listening to this, there is nothing more fun than following Cato Kalin when the Brewers lose a game, or when Wisconsin loses a game, or when the Bucks lose a game. It is not oh, gee, the boys will try harder. It's, you guys effing suck. There's nothing good about this school. I hate the It's the best thing in capital letters and everything else.
A little humor in every one of them because there's a lot of vomit and diarrhea.
Oh, the emoji use.
Passion.
Oh my God.
As you know, it's passion. It's passion.
Yeah. Hey, Dan, the funniest thing is the Brewers are dying to have Cato throw out the first pitch.
Really?
They want him to do what he wants to do, but how can they let him? Because the day before he's scheduled, he's torching them.
I heard from a dear friend who runs the PR there. He said, Cato, we'd love you to throw out the first pitch, but how can we? How can we?
And he doesn't even know how to peel
tweets,
back. You're incapable of even pulling back, which is crazy.
I lasted for 2 weeks of saying, okay, I'm done. I'll throw out I'm done. 2 weeks, and then I start seeing us, oh no, we're starting to blow it. It just took over, and I said, okay, I don't need to throw out the pitch. I'm going to go back to my passion. And people.
Are you sure you don't drink?
Yeah.
Tom, the emoji use is unbelievable. Like, I got a text from him today, and there's like 8 million American flags, fist bump. I don't even know what the hell was going on.
God, I didn't even know some of these emojis existed until the Brewers lose a freaking game in May. Like, doesn't even matter.
Cato emoji Kalen.
Yeah. Hey, Dan, I know. Hey, man, that's a long day. A lot of talking. Radio show. Outkick, and now guest for an hour. So we thank you, man.
Great.
Thank you for
the best.
hanging
You're the
out.
best. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Great.
Any parting shots?
Thank you guys.
And happy holidays. Anything else you gonna go binge watch some Hallmark movies now, or what's?
No, but hey, look, can I ask you a question, Cato? A friend of mine asked me to ask you a question. I'm sure you've been asked this, all right?
Did I spend Thanksgiving at OJ's? No, he's dead.
What'd you say?
Did I spend Thanksgiving at OJ's? No, he's died. They have that poster going everywhere, OJ with a turkey.
He asked me to ask you, do you think OJ did it, and what were the thumps on the wall?
I'll answer that question. I've answered it before, other people before. It's the same. My opinion was OJ was guilty, and I think most of America thinks he's guilty, and no one will ever know because he died with whatever. He never, unless he told someone privately. And the thumps in the wall, after having Detective Lang on our show quite a few times and talking to detectives, some of them became my friends. I believe it's him hopping over because there's only a little walkway there, and he hopped over, and there's an air conditioning unit goes into my room, and he must have hit his arm, his head on it, and he must have or balanced himself on it or something that had to do with the air conditioning unit. And that is where they found the glove. So it must have dropped there.
I asked the wrong question. That was the wrong question. The question I'm supposed to ask, my friend Mike Stewart said, you have to ask him, why was he staying at OJ's house?
Well, another good question. I actually was friends at Nicole and stayed at Nicole's guest house when she lived on Gretna Green, not Bundy. So I lived at Nicole's because I met Nicole in Aspen during the Christmas holiday where everybody went. That was the place to be. Became friends with her because of my actor friend, Grant Kramer, great guy. She was divorced at the time, and then I was the third wheel when they started sort of, sparking their friendship again. So I lived in Hermosa Beach, went to her house quite a few times and said, who lives in the guest house? She said, nobody. And she even said, you want to go live there? So I paid to live there. And we were dear friends, and that's when I met the Kardashian girls, where they were just, small, all friends of Sydney. And they used to hop on my bed, waking up Cato. And they even named the dog Cato, the Akita. And those are all true stories.
You you stayed in Nicole's house or OJ's house, or was it the same house?
Different houses. Gretna Green for 6 months.
How did you get to OJ's house?
They started dating again. He immediately liked me, and they saw trust is the big thing. I was never the babysitter. I was never the pool boy, but I believe the kids adored me. I adored them. So when Nicole moved into Bundy, it was no longer a guest house. OJ said, I've got 3 bungalows. Why don't you move in there until you find a place? So I spent 6 months at OJ's, 6.5 at Nicole's.
Yeah.
And that was, so I lived I always said I had the room with a view. I saw how people live. And I always, said, boy, I'm glad I was raised in Wisconsin.
Hey, Dan, I'll simplify this for you. Nicole was living at Gretna Green. She moves to Bundy. She wanted Cato to move into the condo in Bundy. Cato says, I don't feel comfortable. I don't think that's right. You're starting to date OJ again. We're just friends, but we don't want any misperceptions here. So then OJ offered the bungalow in the backyard of Rockingham to Cato. So that's how Cato got there.
Tom's my closed captioning person.
Makes sense now?
It makes total. Yeah, it makes total. I can't remember. You were on my show, and I couldn't remember if I asked you that. And then a friend of mine, we were again. I was watching the Indiana game. We were having beers, talking. He said, "Hey," he said, "What were the bumps, and how do you end up at OJ's house?" I said, "Well,
He got his answer.
That was it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was all.
Is that part going to make the show? I'll tell him to watch."
Yes, of course.
gonna
What's his
make the
name?
show.
What's his name? Mike Schmidt, you said?
Mike Stewart.
Mike Stewart.
What's up, Mike?
Stewart.
Mike, big fan of yours, baby.
Don't cheapen our relationship by giving it out to everyone, okay?
Mike, you're about to become famous.
I love it. I love it.
All right.
Dan,
Hey, Dan,
thank
thanks
you.
again, man.
Thank you guys. Thanks, fellas.
Dan
Twitter,
Dakich.
Don't at me.
On Outkick.com. Great
We
news
love
source,
Outkick.
sports source, gambling source, you name it. So say hi to everybody over there. Thank you, Dan.
Keep it on. See you, Dan. Keep on the computer. Go to the bathroom. Take care of your dog now. Thank you so
You
much.
guys are awesome. I will do that. Hey, anytime. Thanks, guys.
God,
Thank
I
you.
love you. Love Dan Dakich.
Love you a long time.
All right. Second, remember the first time we had him on 2 years ago, we talked a lot about crazy basketball stories. I love how this has evolved to a different type of conversation, which is what people want to hear anyway.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
It's so funny how times have changed in 2 years. How it's just
Well, here's the thing.
It's
The
a
world
better
was so crazy, like you say, so crazy back then that we had to have a diversion, scandal, and talking about things like that. But now you kind of get the freedom to really speak about the important things and what's really happening in this world.
100%. Hopefully people can understand that
Yeah.
we're not. I think we're not crazy with our views. I just think we're realistic on everything we're talking about. It's not like I'm trying to put people.
no. And we're positive about everything, too.
Down anybody's throat. I'm just saying I want a better. Who doesn't want a better America?
I think we all do. All right. You know what to do, everybody. Just follow the K train. You heard from Dan Dakich what you get, after a Wisconsin Badger loss, a Milwaukee, oh God, heaven forbid the Green Bay Packers lose. But follow Cato on social media. Follow me. Make sure you go into our archive and check out all our latest shows and listen to our audio podcast as well. All right. That's it for us. We'll be back later this week for the one and only Cato Kalin.
Love it.
I'm Tom Zenner. We'll see you next time.